Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth.
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 74, so whether you're back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It is early Friday, August the 9th, and I am in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama, just so I can hang out with you tools and talk about the latest headlines, stories, and rumors in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. Well, happy Friday, my tools, my babies, my people. I'm in the shed, and it's about 100 degrees outside. And I'm playing hurt today. I'm playing hurt. Yesterday was the first day of school, back to school to prove to Dad that I'm no fool. Some of you get that reference. And we're out in front of the house early in the morning. Our kids are dressed and ready. I got one going into 3rd grade, one in his last year of preschool before he joins his sister at big school, as we call it. And we're trying to take the ever important first day of school pictures. And so my wife is getting the children positioned. I'm standing directly behind her. I have my son's cup that I had just filled for school with water in my right hand. And my wife takes a step back and plants her foot, which has a shoe on, directly on the littlest of my toes on the left foot. The bookend toe. The tiny one. The one that sits on the opposite side of the larger and stronger toe. And it hurt, my babies. I let out a scream of pain. And as I reacted, I threw my son's cup into the top of one of our bushes. So as the pain subsided, I walk over to the bush to grab the cup. Because my son's hydration at school is important to me, okay? And I grab the cup from the bushes, and out of the bushes fly about 1,000 wasps. It might not have been 1,000, but it was a lot of wasps, okay? And at least 1 or 2, if not more, stung your boy on the hand, on the knuckle right in front of the tall finger, the one that some of you hold up when you're in traffic. And I don't know of any allergies that I have, but something is going on because my hand has swelled up more than my head does when I see all the downloads I get in India. Big. My hand was curled like the letter C for a while yesterday, my people. My fingers are swollen. My hand looks like it's wearing a couple of gloves, a couple of mittens. And it's not. And I don't know if you're supposed to go to the doctor for something like this. But I have just been taking some Benadryl, icing it here and there, and taking some Tylenol. It's still swollen today. It still hurts to use it. But I'm pushing through the pain. And I'm doing it for you. And I'm hoping I don't lose my hand. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a man in a shed who the internet has labeled a journalist. Also think it's crazy that Taylor Swift and ISIS are being mentioned in the same sentence. I did not have that on my bingo card for Taylor Swift and ISIS to be mentioned in the same sentence in the year of our Lord 2024. Apparently, ISIS recruited some teenagers to work for a security team contracted to protect those at one of her concerts overseas. And then they were tasked with committing an inside job and harming people, and possibly even Taylor Swift at the concert. And look, ISIS has faced coalitions of military units from across the world. But I'm going to tell you right now, ISIS, if you're listening to this podcast, we have been downloaded in Afghanistan. I don't know if y'all be over there, but, I know you're in parts of Africa we could listen to over there. But anyway, if you're hearing this, ISIS, I'll just tell you right now, it's one thing to face down an approaching tank or to have your compound shelled with bombs dropped by foreign governments. It's a whole other thing to go up against the Swifties, okay? Hey, trust me, ISIS, and I'm not a fan of you. I'm not on your side. I'm just being honest. You don't want that smoke. These generations below me will go to the ends of the earth for T-Swizzle. And what is her response to all of this? She's just going to shake it off. Shake it off and keep performing. Yeah. Enough of that. Let's get to some comments and corrections from our show last week. On last week's show, I said I didn't know how long a person could live without water. Turns out it's about 3 days. And without food for 1 to 2 months. On our last episode, I told you about a Florida woman who drowned her roommate's pet spider in ginger ale. As it turns out, a jumping spider is only about 1/8 of an inch in size. So she drowned that spider with probably a tablespoon of ginger ale. That's all it took, was a tablespoon. And on last week's show, I mistakenly said that an NFL team drafted a player from UFC. And words are hard. Of course, I meant UCF. Pardon me, Gus Malzahn. Pardon me, Golden Knights. Pardon me, my brother-in-law Austin and sister-in-law Bree, who graduated from that prestigious university. Our humble little show is being listened to across the globe, 68 countries in total and counting. We are, of course, being listened to all over this great country of ours, all 50 states, but we're still continuing to grow in popularity worldwide. Our top 10 countries as far as downloads looks like this. The U.S. makes up 54% of our audience, followed by India, Canada, the UK, France, where we have been on fire this week for some reason. China at number 6, Australia at number 7. And hey, Australia, you're right on China's heels. You're very close to the number 6 spot. If just a few more of you down under will tune in to In the Shed with Wes Anderson and pass it on to a friend, you will take that number 6 spot from China. And number 8 is Mexico, followed by Germany, and Malaysia is hanging in at number 10. I want to give a special shout out to our 8 new listeners in Malta this week. Malta. We're currently averaging more listeners per episode than ever before, still true thanks to you. And that's an incredible thing. The fact that for however many weeks in a row, I've gotten on this show and said that we're averaging more listeners than ever before, because every time we drop an episode, our download average and the amount of listeners that we have continues to increase. Slow but steady. We the tortoise. And we gonna win the race. We're still adding followers over on X. You can find us there at In the Shed 4. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at In the Shed with Wes Anderson 6670. Please support the show by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, by sharing the show with a friend, and by joining our membership club at patreon.com/intheshed4. You can donate as little as $1 or subscribe for exclusive content for as little as $4 a month. New things will be posted there this week. If you keep supporting the show, I'll keep bringing you the news. If you subscribe, like, and share, we'll keep growing this thing together. Got a great show for you today, but first let's get to some listener emails. Our first email comes from Dalton from Maryville, Tennessee, who writes, Wes, if the election were held today, who wins? Dalton, the truth is nobody knows. It's anybody's guess, Dalton. It's a very close race right now. If you follow us on X at In the Shed 4, something I'm doing is updating and prognosticating where the race stands every Thursday evening. So as of right now, when looking at a conglomerate of the most recent polls, I have Donald Trump receiving 281 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 257, meaning that Donald Trump would win if votes were cast today. That's a little different than what other people are saying, but that's how I see things right now. However, just in the last week, Kamala Harris has gained 5 points in my own prognostication. Okay. Thank you for writing into the show and listening, Dalton. Our next email comes from Jordan from Miami, who says, Wes, several episodes ago you teased covering the Miami mall monsters, but you never have. What happened? I'm sorry about that, Jordan. We took about a 4-month hiatus from the show. It was unplanned, but life happens, and I started to record again. And there's a lost episode. Originally, it was going to be episode 72 of the show, but then Donald Trump almost got assassinated. And then Joe Biden dropped out of the race. And so episode 72 became an emergency podcast about those two things only. I've actually recorded half of what I guess is now a lost episode, in which we covered the Miami mall monsters. And I have an inside source from your city in Miami. So maybe I'll drop that lost episode. Maybe that lost episode will just be floating out there into the ether one day on a random Tuesday. On a Tuesday, club, go. On a Tuesday. And you'll get your Miami mall monsters. Thank you for listening to the show and writing in. Jordan. And finally, Jesse from Boise, Idaho, Potato Land, writes into the show. Positive, your show makes me laugh and actually provides information that I don't hear about elsewhere. Thank you, Jesse. Negative, that bleeping squeaking sound every single episode. What is it and why can't you edit it out? And that's in all caps. Jesse, trying to edit out the squeaking sound is the literal bane of my existence. We run a low-budget show here. I know that's hard to believe when we're listened to in 68 countries around the world and we're growing week to week. But I don't get paid for this. I'm what they call an untrained amateur. And that squeak that you so often hear, that sometimes I'm unable to edit out, is the office chair that I'm sitting in at the news desk. And I tried to fix this issue already. I upgraded to a more comfortable and larger chair, but the problem was it was too tall, even at its lowest. So that when I sat in my new and upgraded chair, I towered above my news desk and the microphone. I've tried a couple other solutions. I tried raising the microphone up. I tried a couple different seating arrangements. And unfortunately for now, until you subscribe to our Patreon and I can upgrade our equipment, I'm stuck with this chair that when I fidget, sometimes it squeaks. I don't like it either. And I'm sorry. Thank you for writing into the show, Jesse. That's all the listener emails this week. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. And as you can tell, no matter what you say, I just might read it on air. All right, let's switch to this. Let's get to the news in the world of politics, and let's hit the headlines. Trump says he's agreed to 3 debates on 3 different networks, calls Harris barely competent, writes the Daily Wire. Senator Kelly jumps to defend Walz after his military career questioned, reports the Washington Times. RFK Jr. says he once had a freezer full of roadkill, says News Nation. From USA Today, Elon Musk's estranged daughter calls him a liar and serial adulterer. And finally, Trump unravels in Mar-a-Lago news conference, ranting about Kamala Harris's crowd size, and that is according to MSNBC. Our first story in the news in the world of politics this week: Pakistani national charged with alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump, other public officials, according to the DOJ. A Pakistani national with purported ties to Iran was arrested last month on charges that he plotted to assassinate former President Donald Trump and multiple other public officials, according to a criminal complaint issued Tuesday in a Brooklyn federal court. While the criminal complaint does not mention Trump by name, multiple sources familiar with the case told ABC News that one of the intended targets of the alleged plot was Trump. Other possible targets included government officials from both sides of the aisle, the sources said. After spending time in Iran, Asif Merchant flew from Pakistan to the U.S. to recruit hitmen to carry out the alleged plot, according to a detention memo. The person he contacted was a confidential informant working with the FBI, according to the criminal complaint. Merchant, 46, is now charged with murder for hire. Asif was arrested July 12th, one day prior to Trump's July 13th rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was shot in the ear. For years, the Justice Department has been working aggressively to counter Iran's brazen and unrelenting efforts to retaliate against American public officials for the killing of Iranian General Soleimani, Attorney General Merrick Garland said in a statement. The Justice Department will spare no resource to disrupt and hold accountable those who would seek to carry out Iran's lethal plotting against American citizens, and will not tolerate attempts by an authoritarian regime to target American public officials and endanger America's national security. Breon Peace, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, added, working on behalf of others overseas, Merchant planned the murder of U.S. government officials on American soil. In April, Merchant arrived from Iran and contracted someone to help with this plot, according to the officials. The person ended up being a confidential source who reported the information to law enforcement, according to the Justice Department. Merchant allegedly again met up with the source in early June and explained the assassination plot and said it was not a one-time opportunity, officials say. Specifically, Merchant requested men who could do the killing, approximately 25 people who could perform a protest as a distraction after the murder occurred, and a woman to do reconnaissance, the complaint said. By mid-June, he met up with the people he thought would carry out the hits, but who were actually undercover law enforcement officials, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Merchant even paid the apparent hitmen $5,000 as an advance on the assassinations before making plans to leave the country when the killings took place. Instead, he was arrested on July 12th, the date he planned to leave the U.S. Fortunately, the assassins Merchant allegedly tried to hire were undercover FBI agents, Acting Assistant Director Christy Curtis of the FBI New York Field Office said in a statement. This case underscores the dedication and formidable efforts of our agents, analysts, and prosecutors in New York, Houston, and Dallas. Their success in neutralizing this threat not only prevented a tragic outcome, but also reaffirms the FBI's commitment to protecting our nation and its citizens from both domestic and international threats. A final target had not been selected by the time Merchant made arrangements to fly out of the U.S., according to officials. Investigators have said they found no link between foreign operatives and Thomas Matthew Crooks, the 20-year-old who was shot and killed after he tried to assassinate Trump from a rooftop near the stage, but the arrest may help explain some last-minute adjustments to rally security. We were initially told that there was no Secret Service snipers coming, but that was shifted earlier Thursday or Friday to indicate that there were, Pat Young, head of the Beaver County Emergency Services Unit, told ABC News. We've been told that this is the first time that a non-sitting president had been allocated Secret Service snipers, so that threw up some alarm bells for us. Like, why the sudden shift from one stance to the other? So, according to the FBI and the Department of Justice, a Pakistani citizen with ties to Iran, and on behalf of Iran, came to the United States to plot to assassinate Donald Trump and other important American officials. Unfortunately for him, the folks that he tried to contract were undercover FBI informants. And he was arrested on July the 12th, the day that he planned to leave the country, and 24 hours before an assassin attempted to take the life of Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. And that's wild. I've seen this story reported in passing on cable news and in print media, but I've seen a lot more coverage of the Taylor Swift concert and ISIS story. And there's not a lot of details here offered in this story. And I certainly have some questions. Do I doubt that Iran is trying to use proxy assassins to seek revenge for the assassination of Soleimani? No. That's totally believable. And in fact, that's what Iran does. They don't do anything themselves. They use proxies. They use their money to hire militant groups and to prop up terrorist organizations. So the idea that they might hire an assassin to commit such a crime on American soil, that tracks. That's believable. But hey, how is it that everybody who's plotting, whether it be a terrorist act, an assassination attempt, or the kidnapping of government officials, just happens to make the mistake of trying to hire undercover FBI informants? It's a little fishy. Is it possible that the FBI is just very good at their job and they have informants everywhere? Sure. But right now in our country, there is not a lot of trust in three-letter organizations like the FBI. And it wasn't very long ago that we had this whole kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, fiasco, where these guys, these alleged white supremacists, were arrested and charged with plotting to kidnap her. And it turned out, upon further inspection, that 11 of the 13 people named in the plot were undercover FBI informants. And that the other 2 people charged were provided all of the weapons and the plan and the details and the coordination and the ability to even do such a thing by those undercover FBI informants. So it's no wonder that people lack trust in such an organization. There's also been proven and on-record instances where the FBI has taken a young Muslim man and radicalized him, built relationship with him personally and radicalized him, got him to agree to do a bombing of a subway, gave him the alleged bomb, and then finally, after much arm twisting, when he showed up to plant the bomb, they came out and arrested him. And they were heroes because they thwarted a domestic terror attack. I have questions. That's all I'm saying is I have questions. I'm not saying, I'm just saying I have questions. It'd be nice to receive a little bit more detail. When it says ties to Iran, what does that mean? How did he come in contact with these undercover FBI informants? Was there anyone else involved besides this one guy and a bunch of FBI folks? There's no doubt that people are trying to take the life of Donald Trump. It's already happened once. We saw reports even before this one came out about Iran plotting to take his life as well. Now we know what that's all about. And as I said, it tracks that Iran would behave in such a manner. So parts of this story make perfect sense, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions. And the American people right now, right, wrong, or sideways, do not trust the FBI. Do not trust the Department of Justice. Do not take them at their word. But it should be bigger news. It should be bigger news that there was a plot of a foreign government to take the life of important political leaders on American soil. On American soil. It's not being covered the way that it should out there, but it's covered in here. In my shed. In my backyard. In Alabama. Our next story in the world of politics. Prosecutors plan to charge former Kansas police chief over his conduct following newspaper raid. 2 special prosecutors said Monday that they plan to charge a former Central Kansas police chief with obstruction of justice over his conduct following a police raid last year on the local weekly newspaper. Prosecutors Mark Bennett and Barry Wilkerson concluded in their 124-page report that the staff at the Marion County Record committed no crimes before former Marion Police Chief Gideon Cody led a raid on its offices in the home of its publisher. They said police warrants signed by a judge to allow the searches contained inaccurate information from an inadequate investigation and that the searches were not legally justified. Police body camera footage of the 2023 raid on publisher Eric Meyer's home shows his 98-year-old mother, Joan Meyer, visibly upset and telling officers, "Get out of my house." She co-owned the paper, lived with her son, and died of a heart attack the next afternoon. And that's unfortunate. That's tragic even. Rest in power, Joan Meyer, who apparently was a very bold and vivacious lady. Onward. Prosecutors found no evidence officers believed they were posing a risk to Miss Meyer's life, but they allege Cody obstructed an official judicial process in the weeks after the raid. He resigned as chief last October. It wasn't clear whether officials planned to charge him with a felony or a misdemeanor, and either one is possible. The criminal complaint had not been filed as of Monday. Small-town familiarity explains but does not excuse the inadequate investigation that gave rise to the search warrant applications in this matter, prosecutors said in their report. Bennett is the district attorney in Sedgwick County, home to the state's largest city of Wichita, and Wilkerson is the chief prosecutor in Riley County in northeastern Kansas. The state's attorney general appointed them after the Marion County prosecutor, who faced questions himself about the search warrants, said he had a conflict. The raid sparked a national debate about press freedom focused on Marion, a town of about 1,900 people set among rolling prairie hills about 150 miles southwest of Kansas City, Missouri. Seth Stern, director of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, said in a statement that Cody should face other charges in addition to obstruction of justice. The raid itself was criminal, he said, and Cody is far from the only one at fault here. Meyer said in an interview that he's grateful prosecutors found that the newspaper's staff committed no crimes, though he questioned why it took them a full year. He also expressed frustration that Cody is the only official expected to face criminal prosecution. "What I feel is going on here is that he's been set up as the fall guy," Meyer said. The newspaper's parent company, Meyer, and 3 current or former staffers have filed federal lawsuits against the city of Marion and current and former local officials, including Cody. A voicemail seeking comment was left at a cell phone number believed to belong to Cody. It wasn't clear who might represent him in this potential criminal case, and his attorneys in multiple federal lawsuits over the raid did not return a telephone message. The search warrants authorizing the police raid accused Meyer and reporter Phyllis Zorn of identity theft and other computer crimes over their accessing the driving record of a local business owner who was seeking a liquor license. Zorn verified the record through a state database available online. The prosecutor said that Cody appeared to think incorrectly that Zorn had to impersonate the business owner to get access. The business owner gave police a written statement 2 days before the raid, but prosecutors said 2 pages of it were absent from material turned over to their investigators in September 2023. The prosecutor's report also referenced text messages between Cody and the business owner after the raid. The business owner has said that Cody asked her to delete text messages between them, fearing people could get wrong ideas about their relationship, which she said was professional and platonic. The report said information about the text would be included in the criminal complaint. So, this is a follow-up story. Follow-up coverage on a story that we have reported on back when it first happened. That in a small town in Kansas that, remarkably, with 1,900 people, still has a weekly newspaper, which is a rarity. And that newspaper was raided. And the owner and editor of it, his home was raided by local police. From the start, there were conflicts of interest. This seemed to be an open and shut case of a violation of the freedom of the press. And hey, we believe in the freedom of the press on this show. We believe in the freedom of speech. We're all about freedom here, my babies. And from the start, the owner of the newspaper claimed that this was a hit job on his newspaper because they were getting ready to report a story about someone, a local business owner, who was applying for a liquor license and had ties to the police. And it appears as though his claims have been justified and substantiated. And this was a story that I only saw reported on News Nation as far as cable news goes. I didn't see it on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, or the like. It may have been, but I didn't see them cover it. It certainly was covered here. And one thing we like to do on this show is we like to follow up on the stories that we've already covered when there are new developments. Just like we did in our award-winning coverage of South Dakota Attorney General, former Attorney General Jason Ravensborg, who hit a man with his car, killing him and then tried to cover it up. And I say that our coverage was award-winning because, hey, I give it an award. I think it was well done. We were the only ones following up on the top law enforcement officer of a state taking advantage of his position in criminal ways. And the people of South Dakota have written into the show twice to say they appreciated our coverage. So I wanted to follow up on this story. The former police chief has now been charged with a crime. We don't know yet if it's going to be a misdemeanor or a felony. But freedom of speech wins. And hey, I'm with the newspaper owner. There's probably others that deserve to be charged with the crime too, and I hope that they face the full penalty of the law. I've said many times on the show before that I believe local media is of incredible importance. There's not very much of it left. The most important politics are local politics. The most important media is local media. That's why on this show we try to cover stuff happening in our state of Alabama, our neck of the woods, our country, our nation, and across the world. Good for this newspaper. A David with free speech in its sling. They done slew the giant. We'll keep an ear to the ground as this story continues to develop, and I'm sure we will be reporting on it again. Our next story in the world of politics: cancer rates in millennials, Gen Xers have risen starkly in recent years, study finds. Experts have one prime suspect. Experts are sounding the alarm as rates of 17 types of cancer in millennials and Gen Xers have risen dramatically in recent years, a new study shows. For certain cancers, people born in 1990 face 2 to 3 times the risk that those born in 1955 did, according to the research published in the Journal of Lancet Public Health. And that's alarming. I was born in 1989. I fit into this category. This article is about me and my people, those 80/90 babies. And how is it, with all the technological advances we have, and advances we have in medicine, that we could be 2 to 3 times more likely to get cancer now than our counterparts in 1955? It's alarming. I digress. The findings echo the recent worrying rise in young people developing colorectal cancer, but add more forms of the disease to the list of concerns. It's too soon to say what is driving the increase in what experts call early onset cancers, but they warn that it's not just due to better screening. People are dying of these diseases at rates and ages not seen in their parents' generations. Here's what to know about the generational risk of cancer and what you can do to reduce yours. Researchers with the American Cancer Society assessed rates of 34 different cancers among those born between 1920 and 1990, based on how many were diagnosed with or died of the disease from 2000 to 2019. On average, the rates of 17 types of cancer, including pancreatic, breast, and gastric cancer, have risen with each new generation since 1920, the study found. Previous ACS research had shown that rates of 11 cancers, including pancreatic, colorectal, kidney, uterine, and testicular cancer, had been increasing among young adults. The new study added 8 more types of cancer to that list: gastric cardiac cancer, a cancer of the stomach lining, cancer of the small intestine, estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, ovarian cancer, liver and bile duct cancer, non-HPV associated oral and pharynx cancer, anal cancer, and Kaposi sarcoma, a cancer of the blood vessel lining and lymph nodes, in men. Rates doubled or even tripled for some of these cancers, including kidney, pancreatic, and small intestine cancers, in people of either gender. For women, liver cancer incidence has increased 2 to 3-fold since the 1920s. Even cancers that seem to be in decline for baby boomers and other older generations, including some breast cancers and testicular cancer, are now a greater risk to millennials and Gen Xers, the study found. More young people are dying of some of these cancers as well. Mortality from colorectal, gallbladder, testicular, and uterine cancer has increased over the generations, as has the fatality rate of liver cancer in women. That really stood out because the concurrent increase in mortality and diagnoses suggests that what we see is not just an artifact due to potentially more frequent screening and diagnosis. Lead study author and senior principal scientist of surveillance and health equity sciences with ACS, Hyuna Sung, tells Yahoo Life, Instead, it indicates a genuine increase in risk, with the increase in incidence sufficient to outpace improvements in diagnostics and treatment. While the new study doesn't answer why this is happening, Sung and other experts have a prime suspect in their sights: obesity. 10 out of 17 of the cancers that are becoming more common over the generations have been linked to obesity, the study authors noted. Research to suss out exactly how obesity might contribute to our cancer cause is ongoing, but there are some leading theories. Timothy Rebick, professor of cancer prevention at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, tells Yahoo Life. When someone is obese, a lot of things change in the body, including chronic inflammation that leads to years and years' worth of damage to cells and tissues in the body, which can lead to cancer, he explains. According to MD Anderson Cancer Center, it may not be a person's body mass index directly. Rather, changes to insulin sensitivity and an increase in certain hormones might fuel out-of-control cell growth and in turn lead to cancer. Coinciding rises in obesity and cancer rates, especially among young adults, suggests that the problem may begin in childhood or perhaps even before people are born, says Rebick. That process of damage to your cells is starting earlier and earlier. So if there's a 20-year lag from this obesity exposure, and it starts at age 10, it's in your 30s or 40s when cancer risk rises, he hypothesizes. The timeline also suggests that there may be other early life environmental exposures, including factors like antibiotic use or diet that may alter your gut bacteria, which may influence a person's cancer risk. While the findings are alarming, as reported by me, experts say not to worry too much. And I'm sorry, experts, but you just told me that my generation of people are 2 and 3 times more likely to get and die from 17 different types of cancer than people who lived in 1920. All I can do now that I know this information is worry. Onward. Here's why. Cancers diagnosed before age 50 are still relatively rare, Rebick says. Only about 350 out of every 100,000 cases of cancer diagnosed each year are found in people between ages 45 and 49, according to the National Cancer Institute. It's not something that people need to start panicking about, but we want people to be informed and start doing things that might have an impact, says Rebick. That just means making straightforward changes to live the healthiest lifestyle you can and reduce your cancer risks, experts say. They say you do this by doing your best to maintain a healthy body weight, exercising regularly, eating a balanced diet low in ultra-processed foods and red meat and high in plants and fish like salmon, drinking minimally, and not smoking. None of these things are easy, but they are the things we can recommend, Rebick says. It's also important to know your family history and see a healthcare provider if you notice any changes that could be early warning signs of cancer. For young people, there are unique symptoms of some cancers, such as colorectal cancers including fatigue, rectal bleeding, abdominal pain, altered bowel habits, or unexplained weight loss, which are really considered red flags for early onset cancer, says Sung. So, studies have found that those of us who were born in the 80s and 90s are 2 and 3 more times likely to catch and die from 17 different kinds of cancer. Despite medical advances, despite technological and scientific advances, despite hundreds of billions of dollars spent on cancer research, and yet these doctors and scientists and experts say, hey, don't be worried. Hey, there is a greater chance that I sprout wings and fly out of this shed tonight than that I have this information and do not worry. You cannot tell me such terrible and tragic and frightening news and then tell me, do not worry. It's kind of like telling your wife, and if you're married, you'll understand this, husbands. It's kind of like telling your wife when she's already upset with you to calm down. Doesn't help. The math ain't mathin'. They point to several things that might be contributors to. There's correlation here, and they don't know yet if there is causation. They point to obesity. They point to eating ultra-processed foods, to smoking, to drinking, to your genetics, to a lack of exercise and overall health. And they point to gut health as well. If you were to blindfold me and spin me around in circles and send me to pin the tail on one of those things, Although I'm sure that they all contribute, but on one of those things I would go with ultra-processed foods. I think that the way that we eat in 2024, and the way that foods are preserved, and the way that they've been genetically modified is so far different than and removed from how things were done in 1920 and in 1955, even down to how our food is planted and grown on the farm. Even at that level. And I think that those things probably contribute heavily when it comes to cancer rates. And I'm not a doctor. I'm just a journalist, okay? I'm just a man in a shed in the backyard of his home in Alabama. But I'm going to give it to you straight. And that's what I think. That's how I feel. This news is alarming, but important. And we should do everything that we can on our end to take care of our bodies and lessen the chance that we are one of these statistics. Eat healthy as you can. Exercise as you're able. Know your family history when it comes to health and genetics. Take your gut health seriously, something I haven't done for most of my life. Do your part. I don't hate very much in this world. I don't have time for hate. There's a lot of things I love. I don't hate very much. One thing that I hate, with everything that I have and all that I am, is cancer. I hate it. But I thought that this was an important story. Something that we need to know. Something that should shape the way that we live. And I wanted to bring it to you tonight. Our last story in the world of politics this week. Texas woman goes viral on TikTok for accidentally driving to Mexico during trip to Home Depot. And there's a lot going on, even just in the title of this article. Texas woman goes viral on TikTok for accidentally driving to Mexico during trip to Home Depot. Let's dig in. A Texas woman recently went viral after sharing her harrowing experience of accidentally driving to Mexico while trying to find a Home Depot. According to the Daily, Trinity Jackson posted a video to her TikTok account explaining that she went to El Paso for 2 weeks. And that's in Texas, my babies. El Paso is in Texas. I digress. To spend time with her mother after sharing that she needed to get away from Houston, where she currently lives. In the 5-minute video, Jackson said she and her mother spent a weekend together before Jackson dropped her mother off at the airport. And I'm already confused at the article. Because why, if she went to El Paso to spend time with her mother, was she then dropping her mother off at the airport? My reading comprehension is fairly good. And yet I'm confused. She lives in Houston. She went to El Paso for 2 weeks to spend time with her mother. Did they just pick a neutral site? Is this a home and away series of visits with her and her mother? I don't know. I digress. Shortly after, her mother texted her to remind her to pick up zip ties that she needed from Home Depot. I'm not going to ask why she needs the zip ties. We're going to continue with the article. Jackson then searched for the nearest Home Depot in the area and found one about 11 minutes away. As she headed for the retail store, Jackson didn't realize how one missed exit could lead to a nerve-wracking situation. She was driving with her music on and her dogs in the back seat when she saw a sign that read, Port of Juarez, a land port connecting to El Paso, and Juarez, Mexico, per the Daily Dot. Mind you, at this point, I'm already way too close to the sign to put two and two together, and I realize I'm now exiting America and headed to Mexico, Jackson said. And we call that reverse immigration, my babies. Jackson explained how she tried to find an area where she could turn around and head back to the United States. However, the road continued to lead her further into the country. I want to stay in America. I don't want to leave America, all right? I love Team USA, Jackson affirmed in the clip. Jackson continued driving and eventually reached the Border Patrol. She quickly asked for help from two agents, but the language barrier was challenging. Since the two workers spoke Spanish and Jackson only spoke English, she had to rely on Google Translate to communicate with him. I said I need to understand how I can get back into my country, Jackson explained. I didn't mean to do this. This is an accident. This is a missed exit to the extreme. When asked for a valid vehicle registration, Jackson said she didn't have the necessary paperwork to prove it. The agent realized Jackson was nervous and frustrated by the ordeal. After she told him she had her driver's license, passport, and other legal documents, the agent decided to help her. The pair continued talking while he advised Jackson to tell the next agent that she had accidentally entered the country. And I wonder if that works the other way. I wonder if somebody comes across our border and Border Patrol approaches them and they say, hey, this was an accident. I wonder what happens then. As she reached the front of the line, several agents and security dogs circled her car. They used mirrors to check underneath the vehicle while surveillance cameras were fixed on Jackson and her car. At the time, Jackson feared she would be stuck in a foreign country without having a way back home. However, one of the agents said that she was cleared to re-enter the U.S., and that if it happened again, she should exit the vehicle and explain her situation, and they would stop traffic for her to turn back around. Jackson said she would never make that mistake again, and learned her lesson. Whole time in my head, one thing's for sure, two things for sure, this is never happening again. This is a mistake that you make once, Jackson said. And I don't think that it's a mistake that you make once. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. This is not a mistake that most people make, even once. Jackson also did not care about the zip ties or finding the local Home Depot to purchase them. I don't care about the zip ties. The zip ties will be there tomorrow. I'm going to crochet, drink some wine, and go to bed in America, Jackson concluded. And those are good life goals. I mean, crochet, drink some wine, go to bed in America. Hey, me too. Minus the crocheting, but hey, me too. In a subsequent video, Jackson said she wasn't worried about going to Mexico. She was primarily concerned about being unprepared for the situation while having her dogs with her. The post amassed more than 461,000 views, with users sharing their thoughts and similar experiences traveling to the border. I went to El Paso once, and T-Mobile texted me, "Welcome to Mexico," while I was driving. I panicked so bad, one user wrote. I'm driving straight home, music off, 2 hands on the wheel, another said. Note to self, never drive in El Paso with my sense of direction. I will end up in Mexico day 1, hour 2, a third user wrote. So...
Baby mamas, mamas. Yeah, go like this. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize a trillion times. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize a trillion times. My baby is drama, mama. Don't like me. Things like having the boys come from her neighborhood to the studio trying to fight me. She need to get Eastern American pie and take her life.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. Couldn't help it. Couldn't resist. If you are from my generation, that song takes you back. And after having just heard a story about how we are so much more likely to get and die from cancer, hopefully, momentarily, that song was helpful for you, my babies. It's all about you. This is for you. And for India. Put me on a billboard in India. I want to be on a billboard in India. This lady just wanted some zip ties. For what purpose, we don't know. The article doesn't say it, but hey, she just needed to get to Home Depot to get some zip ties. One thing leads to another, and she winds up in the state of Juarez, which is not one of these United States, okay? There are 50 states. We have 4 territories even. American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Proud home of former NBA basketball player and Hall of Famer Tim Duncan. But the state of Juarez is not one of the 50 states. And it's not a territory. It's a whole other country. This lady wanted to go to Home Depot, the place where there is wood in abundance, okay? The place where the workers wear some nifty orange vests. The place where you can find screwdrivers, nails, and a host of supplies for your DIY project of choice. And she wound up in Mexico. And look, my sense of direction is not the best, okay? I have been turned around before. I have wound up in large cities, being a kid from small town Alabama, where I turn onto a street only to discover it is a one-way street. And in that situation, you have to make some pretty quick life choices. You have to do the calculus in your head and respond in a way that leads to your safety and well-being. But I've never wound up in the wrong country. I've never wound up in the wrong country. I remember once we went to an away football game in college. We took turns driving. It was a 4.5-hour drive. On the way home, all of us in the car were asleep except for one of my friends who had a GPS on his phone to follow, and yet somehow turned on the wrong road and drove that way for 2 hours. When we woke up, we were in the wrong state. But this lady, she gets the gold medal of misdirection because she was in an entirely different country. And that's how we end the news in the world of politics this week. In the way that only we can, my babies, my people, my tools. Talking about a lady who mistakenly wound up in an entirely different country because she needed to go to Home Depot to buy some zip ties. That's all the news in the world of politics this week. Let's switch to this, the news in the world of sports, and let's hit the headlines. U.S. men's basketball team rallies from 17 down and survives scare from Serbia to advance the gold medal game. Jerry Jones says Cowboys don't have urgency on deal with wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. Nick Foles to retire at Eagles home opener. Kentucky men's basketball to hold open tryout. Lauri Markkanen signs $238 million extension with the Utah Jazz. Texas loses running back Baxter for season with knee injury. And finally, rapper Pitbull buys rights to Florida International University's football stadium. Our first story in the world of sports, Charles Barkley changes mind on retirement, reaffirms long-term commitment to TNT Sports. Charles Barkley won't be retiring from broadcasting after the 2024-25 NBA season after all. TNT Sports announced Tuesday that Basketball Hall of Famer and Inside the NBA co-host has reaffirmed his long-term commitment to the network that will see him exclusively contribute for many years to come. Barkley said during the NBA Finals in June that he would retire from broadcasting after the upcoming season. "I love my TNT Sports family," Barkley said in a statement. "My number one priority has been and always will be our people and keeping everyone together for as long as possible. We have the most amazing people and they are the best at what they do. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with them both on the shows we currently have and new ones we develop together in the future. This is the only place for me. I have to stay. I've been impressed by the leadership team who is fighting hard and have been aggressive in adding new properties to TNT Sports, which I'm very excited about. I appreciate them and all of my colleagues for their continued support, and most importantly, our fans. I'm going to give my all as we keep them entertained for years to come." The NBA announced in July that TNT's parent company Warner Bros. Discovery had failed to match Amazon Prime's portion of the new media rights deal. The deal cements renewed NBA coverage on ESPN, as well as a return to NBC and the addition of games on Amazon. Although WBD promised to take appropriate action, the 2024-25 NBA season will likely be the end of TNT's 35-year relationship with the league. Barkley, who is entering his 25th season with TNT, signed a 10-year agreement with the network in 2022. So, this is Steph Curry saying that he will do whatever it takes to keep the core of the Warriors together for years and for him to retire as a member of the franchise. That's what's going on here. Inside the NBA is the best watch on television when it comes to sports, bar none. Bar none. Ernie, Kenny, Charles, and Shaq are hysterical. They have incredible chemistry. They're knowledgeable about the game. And they do a fantastic job. If you tune in to NBA basketball, chances are you tune in to NBA basketball on TNT. And what happened here is Adam Silver, who is a tremendous commissioner of the NBA, has done wonders for the league, has made a terrible miscalculation, and has put profits ahead of his fan base. With the new media rights deal, the NBA wanted to be in bed with the tech companies. And so they gave a deal to Amazon. TNT, after much consternation, finally agreed to match the offer. And Adam Silver said, hey, we're going with Amazon Prime. Big tall finger to the fans. If you have Amazon Prime, you can still watch the NBA games. Not everybody has that. And the coverage will not be the same or nearly as good, no matter who they get or line up. It won't be Ernie, Charles, Shaq, and Kenny. It just won't. Inside the NBA is a generational show. It's what you think of when it comes to basketball coverage. And Charles Barkley throwing his weight behind TNT, reaffirming a deal with them, deciding not to retire yet, is him saying, I will push my chips into the center of the table. I'm retiring with the team that drafted me. Let's see if that can change things. And it should. It absolutely should, but I don't know that it will. I think that unfortunately in this instance, greed wins out over the desires and wishes of the fans. And hey, I'm glad that Charles Barkley, War Eagle by the way, I'm glad that Charles Barkley is sticking it out with TNT. And he'll be a part of their coverage for years to come. But I can only hope that that coverage includes NBA basketball. I'll watch it on ESPN. I like Michael Wilbon. I'll watch it on NBC. It deserves to be on NBC. But hey, give me NBA basketball on TNT. That's where I want to watch it. And so do the fans. Adam Silver, do the right thing. Get your Frozen on. And do the next right thing. Our next story in the world of sports, NCAA hands Jim Harbaugh a 4-year show cause for recruiting violations. The NCAA announced a 4-year show cause order for former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh on Wednesday for impermissible contact with recruits and players while access was restricted during the COVID-19 pandemic, effectively banning him from college athletics until August 2028. The NCAA said Harbaugh, who left his alma mater to coach the Los Angeles Chargers after last season's national championship, engaged in unethical contact, failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, and violated head coach responsibility obligations. The NCAA had already put Michigan on 3 years of probation along with a fine and recruiting limits after reaching a negotiated resolution in the case. Harbaugh did not go along with the agreement, disputing allegations he failed to cooperate with investigators, so his case was handled separately. The panel noted that Harbaugh's intentional disregard for NCAA legislation and unethical contact amplified the severity of the case and prompted the panel to classify Harbaugh's case as Level 1A, aggravated with penalties to include a 4-year show cause order. Subsumed in the show cause order is a 1-year suspension for Harbaugh, the NCAA said. The recruiting case is separate from the NCAA's investigation into impermissible in-person scouting and sign-stealing allegations that roiled Michigan's championship season in 2023 and resulted in a 3-game suspension of Harbaugh by the Big Ten Conference. A show cause penalty means a school wanting to hire a coach serving that penalty must appear before the NCAA Committee on Infractions to explain why it wants to do so. The NCAA's order for Harbaugh started Wednesday and runs through August 6, 2028. It requires the school wanting to hire Harbaugh to suspend him for the full first season. After that, Harbaugh would still be barred from athletics-related activities, including team travel, practice, video study, and recruiting and team meetings until the order expires. The Chargers were scheduled to practice Wednesday, but Harbaugh is not slated to speak with reporters until Thursday. Harbaugh's attorney Tom Mars has said the coach was not invited to participate in the settlement process or aware that an agreement had been reached between the school and the NCAA. He blasted the NCAA's punishment. The way I see it from Coach Harbaugh's perspective, today's Committee on Infractions decision is like being in college and getting a letter from your high school saying you've been suspended because you didn't sign your yearbook, Mars posted on social media. If I were in Coach Harbaugh's shoes and had an $80 million contract as the head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court which claims to represent the principles of the nation's most flagrant repeat violator of the federal antitrust laws. Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel noted the school has already accepted the sanctions and served many of the penalties. Our staff has worked to improve the process, and we are focused on the future and our commitment to integrity and compliance, Manuel said. The sign-stealing case is still open and could take months to resolve. Multiple infractions cases in such a short time period could prompt the NCAA to treat Michigan as a repeat offender, opening the school up to harsher penalties in the sign-stealing case. It probably just matters more in terms of how the Committee on Infractions interprets the case and whether they're giving the institution the benefit of the doubt in some areas, said Jay Ezel, an attorney based in Birmingham, Alabama, and who has handled NCAA cases before. New Michigan coach Sharon Moore is facing allegations he violated NCAA rules related to the investigation into scouting and sign stealing, according to a draft of the NCAA's Notice of Allegations obtained Sunday by ESPN's Dan Murphy and Pete Thamel. Moore has been accused of deleting text message exchanges with Connor Stalions, the former low-level recruiting staffer who coordinated an off-campus advanced scouting operation around the time the investigation was opened. According to the draft, the NCAA has recommended a less serious Level 2 violation for Moore and alleges that messages between Moore and Stalions were recovered and that the coach provided them to the NCAA. Moore, 38, was promoted from offensive coordinator to head coach when Harbaugh bolted to the Chargers, making his return to the NFL after a successful run with the San Francisco 49ers. Moore filled in as acting head coach 4 times last season while Harbaugh served suspensions, winning all 4 games, including the season finale against rival Ohio State. In-person scouting is banned by the NCAA, which investigated Michigan's alleged system to determine how organized it was and who knew about it. Stalions, who has not cooperated with the NCAA in its investigation, will break his silence August 27th on Netflix when the documentary Sign Stealer makes its debut on the streaming service. I do not apologize, Harbaugh said Monday when asked about the NCAA's sign-stealing notice to the Wolverines. I did not participate. I was not aware nor complicit in those said allegations. The NCAA noted that Harbaugh could not recall meeting with recruits despite confirmation from at least one of his own staff members and the prospects' families. One recruit specifically remembered the coach ordered a hamburger for breakfast, which kind of stood out to me. Other NCAA evidence included a text message from Harbaugh to a recruit. Given the significant amount of reasonable, credible information in the record, Harbaugh's denials are not credible, the NCAA said. Harbaugh's punishment and news about the sign-stealing scandal all come with Michigan ramping up to defend its national title. The Wolverines opened the season at home against Fresno State on August 31st. Once you're at the top, things like that happen, Michigan defensive back Quentin Johnson said a few hours before the announcement of penalties against Harbaugh. That's not really a concern right now, he said. So, just to make sure you're keeping up, if you're keeping score at home, Jim Harbaugh and his Michigan Wolverines go 15-0 on the season, winning the national championship, beating arch-rival Ohio State for the 3rd year in a row, defeating Alabama in the college football playoffs, and then beating Washington for the national title. And very quickly after, head coach Jim Harbaugh, who is coaching at his alma mater, leaves and goes back to the NFL to coach Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. Michigan won a title last year in a season that was full of controversy. When it comes to Connor Stalions, a low-level recruiting personnel employee who was allegedly going to watch opponents play and stealing their signs, recording them, and reporting them back to the team. And because of the controversy, Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 4 games last year, games that his team won. And now he's been banned from the sport for 4 years. How long does Jim Harbaugh usually last at a program? How many years does he normally put into a program before bolting for another? How long does he last in the NFL with players who will not be coached like college athletes because they are professionals? I'd say about 4 years. It's hard for me to imagine at this point Jim Harbaugh coming back to college football, but he may have one more swing for the fences in him. Where would he go? I don't know. He's already won a national title, and he did it at his alma mater. I can't imagine him leaving Michigan and coming back to another team. But it does look like he got out while the getting was good. He stuck his protege, Sharon Moore, in a tough position with recruiting sanctions and others placed on the program when he left. He may or may not have known about everything that went down, but he certainly knew that his program was about to be in trouble. And he's wanted to scratch the itch of NFL football ever since he made it to the Super Bowl with the Niners and lost to his brother. Is this information enough to put an asterisk next to Michigan winning the college football playoffs and national championship last season? Not in my book. But what do you think? What do you say, my babies? My tools, my people? Does this information put an asterisk next to the national championship won by Michigan last season? I would love to hear from you. Get at us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. From the world of college football, we go to the NFL for our final story in the world of sports this week. Our In the Shed with Wes Anderson 2024-25 NFL quarterback rankings. Yeah, we're about to rank the top 10 quarterbacks for this upcoming NFL season, and you're sure to hate my rankings. You're sure to hate them, but that's okay. If you email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com, I will read your criticisms on air. Let's get to the rankings. At number 10, I have Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I have Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets at number 10 overall. And my guess is I will get hate for having him that far back. But I have to be honest with you, my people. I keep it 100 with you. I almost didn't include him in the top 10 at all. That number 10 spot was down to Aaron Rodgers and C.J. Stroud and Tua Tagovailoa, and to a lesser degree Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins. But instead I picked Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not saying he'll have a bad season, but look, let's be honest. Let's keep it real. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old, coming off of an injury. And in his most recent season, he really wasn't that good. When was the last time the man threw for 300 yards? When was the last time he came through in the playoffs for his team? I know he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I know he is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the history of the game. But if we're talking about this season, I have him at number 10. At number 9, I have the Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. Ever since being ran out of town in Los Angeles and traded to the Lions, he's been a very good football player. He's put together some really good game film. That's a trade that actually worked out for both teams. The Rams won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, The Lions are on the come up now under head coach Dan Campbell and his ankle biters. I expect Jared Goff to have another solid season. I have him at number 9. At number 8 on this list, Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love. Yeah, I have Jordan Love ranked 2 spots ahead of Aaron Rodgers for this season. I think Green Bay is a better football team. I think that Jordan Love has better weapons around him. I think that for the last 7 games of last season, Jordan Love was a very comfortable, accurate, and impressive quarterback. I have him at number 8. At number 7, I have Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert. Now, I've always been one to say, why is everyone insisting that Justin Herbert is a top 10 NFL quarterback just because of his talent level? When is he making his team better? When is he getting to the playoffs? When is he winning in the playoffs? What has he done? I think this is the year. With a head coach like Jim Harbaugh who understands how to maximize the talents of his quarterback and tailor an offense around him with one of the better rosters in the league, I think that Justin Herbert has a terrific season. I have him ranked at number 7. At number 6, I have Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is a lightning rod as a player. Because he wears the star on his helmet and he is the starting quarterback, he gets talked about far more than he should. And usually he gets more blame than he should. I know he hasn't won the way that he needs to in big game situations sometimes, but if we're keeping it real, Dak Prescott is a very good NFL quarterback. He's not great. He's not excellent, but he's certainly very good. I think he's going to have a good season. I have him at number 6. At number 5, I have San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy. And I know that I will receive backlash for this, because people will say Brock Purdy is not a top 5 NFL quarterback. They'll tell me people who are more talented, people who have better stature and size, people who are more athletic. But you can't really show me very many quarterbacks who have won at a higher level than Brock Purdy. I know he didn't win when he got to the Super Bowl, but he has put together an excellent start to his NFL career. He has weapons all over the field. If we're talking about this season, I have him at number 5. At number 4 this year, I have Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. And for this one, I'll be very interested to see what you have to say. Are there 3 quarterbacks better than Josh Allen? Did I get this wrong? I have him at number 4 despite the fact that a lot of people are predicting the Bills to take a big step back this season because of all that they've lost. Because they got rid of his best playmaker, his best wide receiver. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to run more. I think he's going to find some new targets and spread the ball out more. They'll lean on the running game when they need to. I think this season Josh Allen will reassert himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I have him at number 4. At number 3, I have Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. Most seasons when I've done these rankings, I've had Joe Burrow at number 2 since he entered the league. I think he's a phenomenal talent and an absolute gamer. He balls out when the game is on the line. He's the only quarterback that has consistently gone head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs and in important games and been on his same level. He's coming off of an injury. That's why I have him 3rd and not 2nd. I still think that he performs well and has an excellent year. At number 2 overall, I have Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Fastest man in football, at least behind center. He had an excellent season last year. We're talking about a 2-time MVP now. But I think he's going to be even better this season with the addition of Derrick Henry. Somebody that the defense will have to key in on, with weapons on the outside that the defense will have to take note of. I think it's going to free Lamar Jackson up to be a more decisive runner, while still continuing to evolve as a passer and hit big plays downfield. I have Lamar Jackson at number 2 overall. And of course, at number 1 overall, the best quarterback in the league this season, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He's the baby GOAT. He's not Tom Brady, but he's the closest thing going. He's the best quarterback in the league and probably the best player. And if you don't like to hear that, it's probably because you're a hater. It's probably because you root for a rival. It's probably because you're tired of his team winning instead of yours. He's the best at what he does, bar none. He's the number one quarterback in the NFL this season. So those are my rankings, my babies, my people, my tools. Number 1, Pat Mahomes. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. Number 3, Joe Burrow. Number 4, Josh Allen. Number 5, Brock Purdy. Number 6, Dak Prescott. Number 7, Justin Herbert. Number 8, Jordan Love. Number 9, Jared Goff. And number 10, Aaron Rodgers. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Who do you have as your top 5 quarterbacks entering this NFL season? Email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Find us over on Twitter at intheshed4 and let me know. That's all the news in the world of sports this week. Let's switch to this, the news in the world of the paranormal, where our first story takes us to Egypt. Yeah, we going to Egypt, my babies. Get on your camel. How did ancient Egyptians stack those heavy stones of the oldest pyramid? Scientists float new theory. For years, Egyptologists have hotly debated how the massive pyramids of ancient Egypt were built more than 4,000 years ago. Now a team of engineers and geologists bring a new theory to the table, a hydraulic lift device that would have floated the heavy stones up through the middle of Egypt's oldest pyramid using stored water. Ancient Egyptians built the step pyramid for Pharaoh Dozier, which might be Doja Cat's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I digress. In the 27th century BC, and it was the tallest structure at the time, coming in at about 62 meters, or 204 feet tall. But how exactly was the monument erected? With a number of stones weighing in at least 661 pounds, this has remained a centuries-old mystery according to the study published Monday in the journal PLOS One. Many detailed publications have discussed the pyramid building procedures and provided tangible elements, but these usually focus on more recent, better documented, and smaller pyramids of the Middle and New Kingdoms, said lead author Dr. Xavier Landrau, CEO of Paleotechnic, a privately owned research institute in Paris that studies ancient technologies. The techniques involved could include ramps, cranes, winches, toggle lifts, hoists, pivots, or a combination of these methods, he added in an email. But what about the Old Kingdom pyramids, which are much bigger? While human strength and ramps may be the sole construction force for small structures, other techniques may have been used for large pyramids. Using an interdisciplinary approach, the new paper was the first to report a system consistent with the step pyramid's internal architecture, the authors wrote. A complex water treatment system drawing upon local resources would have been allowed for a water-powered elevator with the pyramid's internal vertical shaft. Some type of float would have raised the heavy stones up the middle of the pyramid, according to the study. While the theory is an ingenious solution, some Egyptologists aren't convinced, as a more widely believed theory is that the ancient Egyptians used ramps and haulage devices to put the heavy blocks in place, said Egyptologist Dr. David Jeffries, a retired senior lecturer in Egypt archaeology at the University College London, who is not involved with the study. So, one of the great mysteries that we have in our world today, right up there with why the Leaning Tower of Pisa has not fallen, and how it is that so many wannabe terrorists happen to hire undercover FBI agents. Right up there with how Pete Davidson continues to pull the women that he does, is how were the great pyramids of Egypt made? Because we don't know, and because it doesn't make any sense that long ago something so magnificent could be created with such specificity and such perfect angles that even given our technology today, we would struggle to recreate it. How was it done? If you turn on History Channel at 11 p.m. or later, it was because of technology that we received from the aliens. It's been said before that the pyramids were constructed over decades using slave labor from conquered enemies. It's been said that large stones and pieces of block were dragged across the desert with a pulley system. And now, scientists say that, hey, maybe we figured it out. Maybe they used water. H2O, Gatorade. Maybe they used water. Maybe they had a hydraulic system that floated the pieces that they need, pushed them up toward the position they needed to be put in order to build the pyramid. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm no expert. I don't know how they built the pyramids. But I don't think it was with stored water in the middle of the Egyptian desert so long ago. I just don't. You can believe that theory if you want. It doesn't hold water to me. Pun intended. In my amateur estimation, this is just another example of a situation where so long ago, people seemed to have access to technology. It was far more advanced than they were. How they got it, I don't know. Why they lost it, I don't know. Why we haven't rediscovered it, only Elon Musk knows. But to me, I don't think it was. With a hydraulic system built on and based upon stored water in the desert. That's just me. From ancient Egypt, we go to modern technology for our next story. A robot gets a face of living skin that allows it to smile. If humanoid robots make you a bit queasy, and they do, would it help if they had fleshy faces that can smile at you? And no, it would not. That would not help. In fact, I think that would make it much worse. I digress. The uncanny feat is the result of new technology using engineered living skin tissue and human-like ligaments to give robots a more natural smile, according to Tokyo University researchers who unveiled their hideous, despicable, terrifying work this week. And those adjectives are not a part of the written story. They're my commentary, because I'm a journalist. In this study, we managed to replicate human appearance to some extent by creating a face with the same surface material and structure as humans, Professor Shoji Takuchi, and that's an awesome name, the team leader said in a news release. In the process, he added, we identified new challenges such as the necessity for surface wrinkles and a thicker epidermis to achieve a more human-like appearance. The approach promises to make robots more lifelike, and in the future, the researchers say, similar techniques could also be used on humans in the cosmetics and plastic surgery industries that really desperately need help, and that we should focus all of our resources on. And that's sarcasm. Their findings were published in the journal Cell Reports Physical Science. To overlay and connect the lab-produced skin on a robotic skeleton, a layer of collagen gel containing cultured human dermal fibroblasts, a type of connective tissue cell, binds to an innovative system of tiny V-shaped perforations in the surface, letting the skin move with the underlying structure without tearing or peeling. The work of muscles, creating a smile and other motions, is done by actuators. Takuchi's Biohybrid Systems Laboratory has previously engineered skin that can heal, created small robots with biological muscle tissue, and 3D printed lab-grown meat. He says the latest work on living skin has a string of potential next steps. Self-healing is a big deal. Some chemical-based materials can be made to heal themselves, but they require triggers such as heat, pressure, or other signals, and they also do not proliferate like cells, he said. Biological skin repairs minor lacerations as ours does, and nerves and other skin organs can be added for use in sensing and so on. It's critical for robots to have the ability to heal and self-repair, the researchers said in their study, because even small scratches could develop into serious impairments. Biomimetic robots could also become even more realistic with thicker skin, Takuchi said, adding that future projects could look to add sensors, pores, and even sweat glands and fat. The team's paper says their work could also bring insights into how humans' wrinkles are formed. By smiling, all my wrinkles come from smiling, and by incorporating more sophisticated actuators and eventually cultured muscle tissue, their approach could help robots in the future move in fluid, human-like ways. For now, the robot can't feel its face, putting it in a category pioneered by Abel Tesfaye, aka The Weeknd. Not long ago, many of us smiled when technology managed to put the singer's words about his face into the mouth of a U.S. president. So, Mr. Taguchi and his company are out here doing things that I, your humble correspondent, just do not support. You know the fears that I have when it comes to AI. I've seen iRobot. I've seen the Terminator films. I know what's coming. And the last thing that I need as robots take over is for them to be able to smile at me and then run away in fluid motion. I just don't need it. I don't want it. I don't want any of your projects, Mr. Taguchi. Miss me with that lab-grown, aka quote-unquote meat. Miss me with your AI smiling robots. Hey, I don't want it. They're not welcomed here in my shed, okay? I'm gonna have to Michael Scott it. No. No. 1,000 times no. Not even. Not for a moment, not for a second, not even in consideration, not at all, no. Capital N-O. Miss me with your creepy, smiling robots. From smiling robots taking over the world, we go to Colorado for our next story. Colorado rancher finds buried plaques depicting alien beings, Aztec pyramids, and UFOs. A Colorado rancher finds multiple plaques buried on his property that depict alien beings, Aztec pyramids, and UFOs. The MIB has been visiting him. He was later robbed of all of his property. Here is his account. My friend owns a huge ranch in northeastern Colorado, and for 120 years his family has been farmers on that land. And there's a lake on their land. Well, the government has been stealing the water in the lake, I assume to fight fires. The man tried fighting for them to stop or be paid because that was water for his entire cattle, goats, and sheep population. So he decided he might as well make the best of the situation, and that it's a perfect time to put a bridge across his lake. Beginning the process with the backhoe for the supporting post, they kept hitting things over and over. They finally looked at what it was that they were hitting, thinking it was just boulders. No, it was 4,000-year-old plaques of many aliens smoking around a fire out of pipes. There's an Aztec pyramid in the background and flying saucers behind the pyramid. The border was made of mermaids and crocodiles, and the aliens looked like they were praising the pyramid or saucers. There were so many of them. Same thing, same style, just different mediums. Rock, obsidian, gold, silver, turquoise, etc. The man sold some of them for millions, but every day there were men in black at his property wanting more and wanting to talk to him, on and on and on. Then he became alarmed when his German Shepherd guard dogs kept dying, all 9 of them. His heart was broken. He was fed up. He put everything back and buried it all again. He told them, but they kept coming to his house. Someone broke in and stole everything. I have no doubt in my mind, after seeing one of the plaques and many pictures myself, that they were from aliens. One of the plaques was bought by one of the richest men in the world, aka Elon Musk. Someone I believe to be definitely an Illuminati, and he does look like a lizard, aka possibly Mr. Zuckerberg. I have no reason to lie. I've never believed in aliens until seeing what I saw. This happened a year ago, and I still think about it to this day. It's burned into my memory. Aliens are real. I don't know why the government hides this information. So, this is some straight up Joseph Smith tablets from Moroni type stuff right here. This story comes to us secondhand from someone who knew the guy that had these plaques buried on his property. Discovered them by accident, and they give unequivocal proof that aliens are real. Because there's aliens smoking a peace pipe around a fire on the plaques. There's Aztec, for some reason, pyramids in the background behind them, along with UFOs flying in the sky. And the border of the plaques are filled with mermaids and, for some reason, crocodiles. Can you tell that I don't seem to believe this story? Are you picking up what I'm putting down, my babies? This story is interesting, it's entertaining, and it's most probably complete fiction. There are no pictures attached to this story. There are no credible secondary witnesses. It's just a guy who says, I know a guy, and this thing happened, and it proves everything. And yet there is no proof. It seems to be what I would label as fan fiction. What do you think, my people, my babies, my tools? Do you put any stock in this story whatsoever? Is it completely made up, though interesting? Or do you think that maybe this farmer in Colorado happened to find these incredible ancient plaques that prove aliens are real? I'd love to hear what you think. Email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at intheshed4 and let me know. From ancient alien plaques buried in Colorado, we go to the Bermuda Triangle for our last story this week. From the supernatural to the super ridiculous, these tales involve wormholes, malfunctioning compasses, and even Atlantis. 14 men and 5 torpedo bombers, 31 passengers aboard a commercial flight, a U.S. naval ship carrying 306 men. All are victims of the so-called Bermuda Triangle, an area of the South Atlantic bounded by Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and the island of Bermuda. The first mention of the Bermuda Triangle, sometimes called the Devil's Triangle, came in 1964 when a writer named Vincent Gaddis cataloged the many catastrophes that had taken place there since the late 1800s in a pulp magazine called Argosy. 10 years later, paranormal enthusiast Charles Berlitz released a best-selling book about it, aptly named The Bermuda Triangle, which went on to sell more than 14 million copies. Since then, the Bermuda Triangle has taken up permanent residence in our collective imagination, growing to become a term synonymous with mysterious disappearances and tragedies. Today, there are more conspiracy theories about the Bermuda Triangle than there are ships in the sea. Here are 7 of the most common. Number 1, Atlantis. It was Charles Berlitz himself who forwarded the idea that the lost city of Atlantis was somehow responsible for the shipwrecks and plane crashes in the Bermuda Triangle. Since then, others have piled onto this theory, arguing that technology developed by Atlanteans, including crystal energies, is still active on the seafloor, causing mechanical malfunctions in the boats and planes above. The biggest flaw in this theory, of course, is that Atlantis isn't real. Allegedly. Number 2, rogue waves. A rogue wave is an unusually large and unpredictable swell of water, typically twice as tall as the waves around it. A few years ago, scientists at the University of Southampton in England claimed that the waters of the Bermuda Triangle were especially ripe for rogue waves due to storms moving in from all sides. Some of the waves the researchers posited could reach 100 feet or higher in height. While the scientists' work garnered a ton of attention, it could not explain what would cause an airplane to crash in the Bermuda Triangle. Number 3, magnetic forces. The Bermuda Triangle is one of 2 places on Earth where a compass will point to true north instead of magnetic north. While true north is the fixed point where lines of longitude converge on a map, magnetic north is constantly shifting. It's the point on Earth's surface where its magnetic field points directly downward. The difference between the two is called declination, and all trained ship and airplane pilots know how to account for it when charting their course. So the conspiracy theory that compass malfunctions are behind the triangle's grisly history is easily debunked. First of all, it assumes that many experienced pilots were simply unaware of magnetic declination. Second, it can't explain the many boats and planes that pass through the area without incident. Number 4, aliens. No surprises here. Where there are conspiracy theorists, there are usually UFOs. In this case, the story goes that aliens used the Bermuda Triangle as a portal to our planet. There they gathered the people and the technology they need to conduct their research on our species. This theory explains why many of the ships and planes that go down in the Bermuda Triangle have never been recovered. Number 5. Methane bubbles. In 2016, a group of researchers from the Arctic University of Norway announced that they had discovered massive half-mile craters at the bottom of the Barents Sea off the coast of Norway. The craters, they hypothesized, were caused by sudden explosions of deep underwater deposits of methane. Lots of conspiracy theorists glommed onto the idea, arguing the phenomenon. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Phenomenon. Do-do-do-do. Phenomenon. Do-do-do-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Might be responsible for shipwrecks in the Bermuda Triangle. However, just a few months later, the researchers themselves burst the bubble, as it were. We're not making any links to the Bermuda Triangle, they said, in a 2016 statement published by the Center for Arctic Gas, Hydro, Environment, and Climate, a coalition of scientists that investigate Arctic marine geology. Theory 6. Wormholes. Could the Bermuda Triangle be a portal to another space and time? A pilot by the name of Bruce Gernon says it is. I didn't believe in time travel or teleportation until it happened to me, Gernon says. The pilot alleges that a fog surrounded my craft and I leaped ahead 100 miles. Don't believe it? Luckily, Gernon documented what happened and memorized every detail of the flight, publishing a book about his experiences in 2017. Theory 7. Waterspouts. According to NASA, waterspouts are spinning columns of moist air that form over warm water. Akin to a tornado in the ocean, waterspouts can feature wind speeds of up to 125 miles per hour. Because the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida is one of the most active areas in the world for this severe weather phenomenon, I already did the song, some have posited that they could be responsible for the Bermuda Triangle disasters. While unproven, this theory may be the closest to the truth, as the United States Coast Guard and the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration have both stated that any mishaps in the area were likely caused by bad weather and inexperienced navigators. At the same time, both agencies asserted there's nothing that's special about the Bermuda Triangle at all. The ocean has always been a mysterious place to humans, and when foul weather or poor navigation is involved, it can be a very deadly place. This is true all over the world. There's no evidence that mysterious disappearances occur with any greater frequency in the Bermuda Triangle than any other large, well-traveled area of the ocean. So, what causes the Bermuda Triangle phenomenon? What's going on in this one area of the ocean, causing so many planes and ships over such a long period of time to lose track of where they are, to crash, to sink, never to be heard from or found again? A lot of interesting theories mentioned in this article. The one that I find most preposterous of all is the one peddled by the government and the scientists. That, hey, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to be learned from this. There's nothing strange that's going on. Yeah. Okay. I don't think the cause of what happens to the Bermuda Triangle is due to magnetism. I don't think that it is because of ancient Atlantean technology. Could it be waterspouts? Could it be wormholes? Could it be something to do with time travel or aliens? It's certainly an interesting thought. I'm not somebody who solves everything outside of our understanding with, hey, it's the aliens. But it's certainly an interesting thought. I would put my money on the side of waterspouts. I'm open to the idea of a wormhole, but I do think that something is going on here. I do think that we have empirical evidence. You can make statistics say what you want. Figures don't lie, but liars figure. And I just don't buy that there's nothing unusual happening in the Bermuda Triangle. So many ships, so many airplanes, so many boats have gone missing, have sank, have never been found in this tiny stretch of ocean There's something about that area that is hard to navigate, that causes these instances, these SOS signals to go up, these emergencies. And I think it could be water spouts. I'm open to the idea of wormholes. I'll listen to you if you think it is the aliens. I don't think it's Atlantis. I don't think it's magnetism. And I don't think it's much ado about nothing. This is something, and it's something that I've always been interested in. And it's on my bucket list to sail a boat through the Bermuda Triangle. And I'm going to do it one day, and we'll talk about it on the show. But until then, what do you think? What is the cause of the phenomenon of the Bermuda Triangle? Is it any of the things mentioned in this article? Is it something else? Is there nothing to see here at all anyway? Get at us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 74. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Join our membership club at patreon.com/intheshed4. Look for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, the Good Pods app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to follow us on X at InTheShed4 and subscribe to our YouTube channel at In The Shed with Wes Anderson 6670. Tune in again next week when we'll hit the headlines, talk some college football, and investigate together the incredible story of the Kandahar Giant. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling weekend. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scouts. Meemaw, we made it!
We sure did.